Let's get something clear from the start. Dragon Ball is like the grandfather of battle shonen. Even if you don't like it, a lot of the battle shonen you enjoy today has been inspired by it. What Dragon Ball has done for shonen and the Western anime community, and honestly just anime and the culture as a whole, cannot be understated. Dragon Ball is so important, but just as equally as it is important, it is also whack. There are hundreds of episodes and chapters of Dragon Ball, and it just has lost its mind as time went on. The series has been running on and off since the 80s. While other series go on and get more boring over time, Dragon Ball just gets crazier and arguably more hype. Some would say arguably worse, but think about it. We went from base Goku to Kaioken to Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan 2 to Super Saiyan 3 to Super Saiyan 4 to Super Saiyan God to Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan Blue, then Kaioken while using Super Saiyan Blue to Ultra Instinct Omen to regular Ultra Instinct, and it's probably gonna go on and on like that. At first, Goku would go on adventures fighting random monsters, criminals, and compete in martial arts tournaments. Then later he fought aliens and cyborgs and literal gods, and still compete in tournaments. And instead of saving the world, he's now saving his whole universe by fighting other universes. He's probably gonna save his dimension next. Unless, does the universe count as a dimension? I don't know, things just keep escalating. There's multiple versions of Super Saiyans, multiple sets of death-defying Dragon Balls, and I think Dragon Ball took a turn that people reading it in the 80s could never have seen coming. Today I want to show you the sports anime that I think best embodies the evolution the Dragon Ball series has had, Prince of Tennis. But before we get into that, I just want to ask you to hit the like button because it helps get my video into the algorithm. Now let's get into it. People don't talk about it much now, but Prince of Tennis was one of the classic sports animes back in the 2000s. It focused on middle school freshman Ryoma Edison and his time with the Seigaku tennis team. From the start of the series, they make it clear that Ryoma is a prodigy. On his tennis team, where they don't let freshmen be regulars, they let him be a regular because he's just that good. Throughout the entire series, he almost exclusively faces players that are older than him, and he wins almost all of his matches. The series starts out being very level-headed in terms of abilities and what people can do, and not really that flashy. Ryoma's signature move at the start is the Twister. It's a serve that bounces in the opposite direction of where you hit it. It makes it hard to return because the ball bounces in an abnormal direction and you don't expect it to do so you mess up your return. It's actually a shot that you can hit in real life and has been seen before in professional tennis. A lot of players do things like this in the start. Just use strategy from actual tennis or just do things that seem like they could be in the realm of reality even if it's not actually possible. In one of the early matches in the series, Ryoma faces Ibu, who uses a technique he calls spot. After hitting very specific kinds of shots, he can trigger your muscles to contract for a brief moment and hit the ball at you, with you unable to return the shot because you can't move your arm for a brief moment. The idea itself is crazy, but there's some logic used to try and justify what happened. Muscles do contract. They said he practiced hard at perfecting and he can't do it all the time, only when he hits those specific shots. The way Ryoma beats this guy is just swapping his grip to his other hand. So if one arm can't move, he's fine, which makes sense because he's ambidextrous. Most games are won by players learning to adapt and overcome their opponent's strategy. In that same arc, Ryoma and Momoshiro are playing a doubles match together, but realize that they're crap doubles players. So to overcome that, they just split the court in half and play the game like they're playing singles. And if the enemy hit the ball down the center, they developed a strategy of calling who's gonna get the ball, and they won. It's not often that a player will just randomly power up and just win his game. If I had to make a list of non-problematic players, I'd put these guys on the list. Nothing they do is crazy, they mostly just play normal tennis. And the semi-problematic tier, I put Kikamaru, Inu, and Tezuka. Kikamaru just does stuff that doesn't seem viable at all. It's not impossible, it's just that this man be doing backflips and handstands on the court, like, what the hell? Inu uses data to try and perfect his tennis. At first, that may not sound that crazy, but how accurate his data is what's scary. He'd be like, the chance of you returning the shot is 0%. Then turns around from the net because he knows you're not going to be able to return that shot. He still loses a decent amount of matches though, so I can't say his data's so good he's like, God, that's another character. But when it's accurate, it's crazy. Lastly, we have Tezuka, who's the captain of the team and considered to be the best player. He only has two moves though, Zero-Shiki drop shot and Tezuka zone. Zero-Shiki is a drop shot that just doesn't bounce and reverses as soon as it hits the court, which is literally impossible, but they just explain that the ball has so much underspin that that's why it doesn't bounce. You can have underspin on a shot so it bounces backwards, but to just roll like that, it's not really possible, but it's not that flashy, so I'm gonna give it a pass. Tezuka zone gets a pass for a similar reason of not being that flashy. Tezuka puts a certain type of spin on the ball, so when the opponent hits the ball back to his court, it comes directly to him, so he doesn't have to run around, he can just focus on his hits. It takes a lot of spin in your return to break Tezuka zone, and if you do too much spin, you'll hit the ball out of bounds. I know that may seem completely crazy, but compared to what I'm about to tell you, you're not gonna be fixated on it too much. In the most problematic tier, we have Fuji and Ryoma. Let's start with our main character. Of all his moves in the series, this is the one that makes me lose the most sleep. Drive B. What the hell is this? Oh, you haven't seen the show. I'll tell you what this is. It's bullshit! For momentum, he crouches down and dashes forward, skidding, then gets up and hits the ball with so much topspin and speed that it bounces twice on the court, making a B formation. The B formation is not what bothers me. It's that he skids on asphalt with rubber shoes and produces sparks. It just doesn't make sense. He shouldn't be able to get any distance. He should just fall on his face or ass. There's a lot that Ryoma does that's questionable, but I just want to show that one ability just to show like, this is like the height of defying the logic that he does. Let's move on to Fuji, who's regarded as a genius. Even though Tezuka's the best player on the team, Fuji has never lost a match before, official or unofficial. So you know this dude is cracked. Fuji uses these moves he calls the triple counters. His counters only work in specific situations because they're meant to counter other opponents' play, but he ends up using them quite a lot. One of them is Higuma Otoshi, which is used to counter smashes. When someone's gonna smash the ball, he turns around, uses that momentum of him turning to lob the ball back in the enemy's court. Then there's Tsubame Gaishi, where if you give him a shot that has too much topspin, he will turn to you a ball that has no bounce and just rolls across the court because, I don't know, I don't remember the explanation. It's so weird. But it's not even the worst part. The biggest sin is Hakuge, which is an ability that has so much topspin on it that it bounces back all the way from the opponent's baseline into Fuji's hand at his side of the course at his baseline. But to activate it, there has to be wind. Are you paying attention? This doesn't make any sense. Almost everything else in the show tries its hand at a rational explanation, even if it's bullshit. This just has a terrible explanation. Like, we've seen spin do a lot of things in the series, but never with this much force or extent. Fuji hits a ball forward, then it completely shifts momentum, then bounces backwards. All that distance. That's why Fuji is going in S tier, or whatever I call this problematic tier. No, S plus tier, because goodness. I really do think Hakuge is the wildest move in the original Prince of Tennis. Throughout Prince of Tennis, there's other characters doing whack shit, but the main characters are who we see the most, so I wanted to focus on them. Different people have abilities or techniques like running fast or serving fast, or even being able to serve the ball hard. Hard not being fast necessarily, they do clarify that. You know, the special move I feel like mentioning is Rondo towards destruction. It's used by Atsobe. It's a smash that first knocks the racket out of the opponent's hand, then another smash that just scores because the opponent doesn't have a racket in his hands. And on the same team as Atsobe, there's Gakuto, who literally be jumping 7 feet in the air and shit. Like, I thought Kikamaru was bad, but Gakuto was insane. I could keep going, but I think you have an understanding of how players in Prince of Tennis play at this point. Most of the players use strategy from real life tennis or moves that make sense on a theoretical level, but not a practical one. Except Fuji. Fuji is something else. Now that you understand how tennis is played in Prince of Tennis, we can move on to the OVAs. Right off the bat, the writing is immediately worse. Like, the plot suffers. At the end of Prince of Tennis, Ryoma leaves Japan to play in the US Open. Seigaku, already having won the Kanto tournament, are still going to go to nationals without Ryoma. But after Ryoma's done in America, he comes back to Japan saying he wants to just cheer on the team since his position as regular has been filled. But Oishi sees the value of having Ryoma on the team, so he gives up his spot to him. It seems logical at the time, but this does not matter at all. After Seigaku's first game in the nationals, Oishi comes back as a regular because he wanted to play tennis again. In the first series, there were only 8 regular positions on the team, and they were juggled between these 9 characters due to injury or just some of them not making the cut. Randomly, that doesn't matter now because they've decided they're gonna have 9 regulars. And it's really for no reason. The coach of the Higa team, Seigaku's first opponent, likes to tell his players to assault the enemy coach with a tennis ball, and the ref says nothing, clearly. Ryoma's against this fat motherfucker here, and he starts taunting by saying, hey man, maybe you should go on a diet, and that guy grabs him and threatens to kill him. The ref, of course, says nothing. He sees no problem with this at all, clearly. But let's talk about the new abilities. They almost immediately make less sense. There's this guy from the Okinawan team who uses Habu. That's a ball that curves in every direction. Most abilities that use spin only move in one direction, but this man's Habu goes all over the place for no reason. He can use this ability whenever. As a serve, as a smash, it doesn't matter. He can use it whenever he wants, and it's only the second dumbest thing to come from these series of games. What happens next is so stupid you'd think they'd pull it out in the final game of the whole series. Kikamaru has shot himself up on the tier list for this. After Oishi retires, he plays a singles match, and he's never done that before. But halfway through the match, he's like, singles is so boring, so I guess I'll play doubles. What does that mean? It means Kikamaru decides he wants to play by himself. So he runs so fast that it appears like there's 2 of him on court. Not for a few seconds, not for just a minute, for the whole match. Everyone was so shocked by what they saw. The referee, who finally decided to do something, by the way, tried to kick one of the Kikamarus off the court because it's a singles match. Then after the ref's brain processed what was happening, he passed out because he knew it was also bullshit. Like, we see Kikamaru run 2 opposite directions at the same time. wrong, we see him grab himself and celebrate. Like prior to this, Kikamaru's lost games for having poor stamina, but in the few months between the Kanto Tournament Nationals, he now has so much stamina that he can play half a match pretending to be two people. This could have been the whole video, honestly, just talking about how this doesn't make any sense. But the main thing is that abilities go so over the top in the OVAs. And remember, these are canon. At times you may think the visuals aren't real, they're just there to make the action seem more interesting, like in Demon Slayer. But now the characters are commenting on visual effects. They see and you see them blinded by the light of people's aura. Also, people have aura now because of Muga no Kyoshi, which has been introduced. It lets you do a few things, but mainly people use it to just become stronger or copy other people's abilities. A lot goes on in Nationals, but Seigaku's game with Shiten Hoji is where things go up another level. Ryoma's match with Kentaro is only for 1 point because it's an unofficial match, but neither player wants to loot, so they go all out. So much that Kentaro uses his stupidly named attack, I'm not gonna say it, where he becomes a tornado and jumps 30 feet into the air. Then Ryoma turns his ball, causing a small explosion where it's revealed that the ball split in half on opposite sides of the court, ending the game in a draw. So just to recap, tornado, 30-foot jump, small explosion, ball split in half. It's insane. These aren't visual effects. I can't stress that enough. You can see the wind and explosion affecting the people in the stadium. I really thought that Kentaro was on another level, but then I realized because it's Nationals, almost everyone's on another level because everything is so over the top now. Speaking of another level, we're on to the finals of the national tournament. The rematch between Seigaku and Rikadai Fuzuku. On the lighter end of the ridiculous scale, we have Tezuka versus Sanada. Sanada has a number of skill techniques he uses, but he has one called lightning, where he hits the ball with the side of his racket that has so much force, it breaks the strings of the racket that tries to return that ball. Tezuka, realizing he can't return any of these shots, reverse engineers Tezuka's zone to make all of Sanada's shots go out. If you're wondering why Tezuka never did this before, it's because it's ruining his fucking arm. The amount of spin on the ball needed to do it is insane. Tezuka's zone is used for people trying to hit the ball already in the court, so Tezuka doesn't need to add as much spin to make sure it comes to him. However, for Tezuka Phantom, it's the exact opposite. So if someone was trying to hit the ball in the center, he's gonna need infinitely more spin to move it to make sure it gets out. And I thought that was crazy. The other insane thing Tezuka does is make his zero shiki drop shot into a serve. So he'll serve perfect games because no one can return a ball that does not bounce. How he did that is beyond me, but it is killing his arm. He probably won't be doing it again. There's a doubles match with Kaido and Inyo facing Renji and Kirihara. What Kirihara does and what has been done to him is so messed up. In Prince of Tennis, the way he played tennis was attacking someone with a tennis ball and just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you," when he was doing it on purpose. But in his match with Fuji, when Fuji accidentally hit him with the ball, he got paranoid and feared Fuji was trying to hurt him the way that he hurt Fuji. And he had a character arc later where he pretty much renounced that kind of tennis because of how fucked up it was. But apparently it was all filler, so none of it mattered. In the game Rikadai played before Seigaku at Nationals, the older members of his tennis team trick him into getting so mad at his opponent that he unlocks this devil form. They weren't happy with how he doesn't want to attack people with tennis anymore, so they tricked him into going into this devil form where he becomes pure aggression and sadism, just so they could win. Kirihara damages Inwa so much that he passes out during their game and technically wins by KO. And this is him after getting out of the hospital because of what Kirihara did to him. Going to the final match, it's Ryoma versus Yukimura, the real captain of Rikadai. Yukimura was in the hospital when Seigaku faced Rikadai last time, so the viewers, we don't know how he plays. But apparently he's so good that he's never lost a game before, because in tennis, you need 6 games to win. He's 6-0'd every single person he's ever played. Do you know how he did that? By becoming God. Literally, like Ryoma's tagline is Ryoma, the Prince of Tennis. Yukimura's is the Child of God. When you play against Yukimura, he takes away your senses. Apparently he's such a good player that he gives his opponents the yips that somehow will neutralize all their senses one by one. You can't feel touched, you can't see, you can't hear, nothing. They literally call him the Child of God because of how ridiculous his powers are. There's been a lot of reaches in the show to justify powers, but this is by far the worst. He takes away your senses. It is the second most ridiculous thing that happened in Prince of Tennis at this point. This is still worse. This is still infinitely worse. But how does Yukimura's match with Ryoma play out? Well, Yukimura is mostly beating his ass, but at a moment when Ryoma has lost his senses, he thinks to himself about how he feels about tennis, and when he realized that tennis was fun, he got all his senses back and a new power. Tenmiho no Kiwomi, a stage of Muga no Kyochi, which basically just makes Ryoma a god. He hit a serve so fast that the ref has to look at it in slow-mo to verify he even touched the ball. So Ryoma starts schooling Yukimura, and when he's at match point, just to add insult to injury, he decides to finish the game with a new move. It's called the Samurai Drive, where he hits the ball so it splits in half. I don't even know if that's legal, but I don't have time to think about it because Yukimura in 2 hits returns the ball, which I'm 90% sure isn't legal because he technically hit the same ball twice, but anyway. Then Ryoma returns them at once, winning the game, and Seigaku wins Nationals. The difference between the original Prince of Tennis and the national OVAs is that the special moves are far more over the top, and the reasoning becomes far more logical. The visual direction is more pronounced, but also it's not just an effect anymore, it's visible to people now, they can see these things happening. Looking back, Ryoma beating someone by switching his hand so his other arm didn't tense up feels like it could never happen with Prince of Tennis now, because it's far too simple when the logic in this show is otherworldly, honestly. If someone put a tag for supernatural with the Prince of Tennis OVAs, I'd be like, no, not yet, but we're getting there. We are getting there. I know I didn't bring up Dragon Ball much, but I hope you can see that just like there's a difference between fights and storytelling from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, the same can be said about the difference between Prince of Tennis and the national OVAs. The power levels in this show get even crazier than this, by the way, so if you want to see me talk about the new Prince of Tennis and all of its absurdity, let me know in the comments. Thanks for making it this far in the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you want more content. I'm LeeTSimba, and I'll see you guys next time.